Welcome, Heritage Bay members, including those here in person and those viewing later online. This is our first of our two town hall meetings for membership review, comments, and questions about the proposed revisions to the master governing documents. This town hall is being presented by the Master Documents Revision Ad Hoc Committee. I'm Mary Jo Deagle. I'm committee chair and vice president of the Master Board. First, I'm going to give an overview about what will be presented today. Please follow along on our agenda, which has been handed out today and is also available online along with this PowerPoint presentation. I will give introductions, then present a PowerPoint on our screen, during which our association council will explain some important concepts. After the PowerPoint, the town hall will be open for member comments and questions. We will have committee members with microphones to assist members. Please wait until the end of the PowerPoint presentation for your questions and comments. Lastly, I will make closing remarks and remind you about future important dates to put on your calendars, which are noted at the end of the agenda. At this time, I would like to introduce our committee members. And that's Claudette Azar-Kenyon, if you'd like to stand just briefly, who is our liaison and our secretary to the board. Next is Tom Bava, who is our board treasurer. And Mike Schmidt is from Single Family Homes. Next, I'd like to introduce our association counsel, Christopher Davies from Cohen and Grigsby. And I'd like to introduce and thank our management staff. Robert Staley, our general manager. Matt Renner, our club manager. Stephanie McIntosh, our director of administrative services. So what has the Master Documents Committee been doing over the past several months since April of 2018? Well, the Master Documents Review Ad Hoc Committee has been working for many months in collaboration with Association Council to prepare updated revisions of 3 governing documents for our Master Association, our Master Documents. The committee members who have introduced to you represent all 4 neighborhood associations and include 4 current Master Board directors and a volunteer member who's not a director. All of us, with assistance from management staff, have been working in concert with our Association Council. As you can see, there are 4 attorneys involved in the detailed review of our master documents. Again, that's Claudette Azar-Kenyon, Thomas Bava, Michael Schmidt, myself, and Jim Lemons with Christopher Davies. What kind of final documents are being proposed for revisions, and what master governing documents has the committee been working on with Association Council? Our Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, our Articles of Incorporation, and our bylaws. Association Counsel Christopher Davies is now going to explain the function and purpose of our master governing documents, highlight the 3 specific documents the committee has been working on for a membership vote, and discuss the difference between just amendments to documents and amendment and restatement of entire documents.
You all have this. This is basically the current, mine's a little dog-eared and what have you because it's been looked at a lot. This is essentially the Heritage Bay documents as they currently exist with all the amendments that were done when Lennar was in charge of the community and subsequent amendments after Lennar turned over control. And we're trying to streamline that. And there are essentially 4 documents for you to be concerned with. The main, the thickest, the biggest, the one where all the substantive rights are, is the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions. We regard that in this industry as essentially the Constitution. That's where all the property rights are buried. Not necessarily buried, but exist. It's a very important document, and probably the toughest one to amend because it has real substantive issues in it. The Articles of Incorporation is at the other end of the spectrum. It is the shortest and smallest. It doesn't really get changed that much. It's necessary because Heritage Bay is a nonprofit corporation. Every community like this has to have a corporation to run the affairs and the administration of the community. But it's not that dissimilar from a lot of nonprofit corporation articles of incorporation reciting the powers and authority that Heritage Bay has in connection with the affairs of running the community. The bylaws are essentially, as it says, the procedures. That's essentially the go-to manual, how much notice to give for a meeting, what has to be the content of a proxy, and so on and so forth. The fines and those sort of provisions contained within the bylaws. A document that maybe generally is amended a little more often than the declaration, because procedures do tend to change from time to time. The legislature tends to focus on procedural type aspects. So that's a more commonly amended document than the declaration and the articles of incorporation. Finally, there are rules and regulations that you're all familiar with. This is a different document in the sense that the declaration, the articles of incorporation, and the bylaws require a vote of the membership in order to amend them, whereas the rules and regulations do not require a vote of the membership. They can be amended from time to time by the board of directors. There are notice requirements that have to be followed, and all members would have a right to come and attend any board meeting at which the rules and regulations were expected to be amended. But there's no actual right to vote as a member on the rules and regulations. On the bottom there's a statement about amendment and restatement. Over the years here, you've done some amendments, and they've been what we call selective amendments. You take a particular text and you vote on that very text. You may be voting on 3 or 4 texts at one time. Maybe it's just one, depending upon what's up for consideration by the membership. We're doing something a little different here this time, and we'll talk a little bit more about this further on in the PowerPoint presentation. But an amended and restated, or an amendment and restatement, essentially puts everything all into one document. And so we'll have one vote, one up or down vote on the whole package. So as opposed to having selective amendments, I don't know how many hundred we would have if we did it that way, but we vote on it as a package. This is the common way that it's done. It's really the only practical way of doing it when we're rewriting as much as we are in all 3 documents. And then they'll all meld together and be internally consistent with each other. Thank you.
So why is it important for Heritage Bay to revise and update these 3 master governing documents? Well, our master documents were filed and prepared by the developer of Lennar beginning in 2005. Since then, they've been amended piecemeal, leaving us with multiple document revisions that are unwieldy and at times confusing. It's recommended that community associations update their governing documents every 10 years, so we are well overdue. As Mr. Davies explained, amendment and restatement of the documents amends and restates the entire document and replaces prior restatements and piecemeal amendments. Throughout this presentation and this town hall, when I refer to master documents, I'm using it as a shorthand term to refer to our declaration, our articles, and our bylaws. Our current master documents are outdated and unwieldy. To emphasize, one important reason to update and revise our master governing documents is to make them easier to use and to understand. This is a folder containing all of our current master governing documents. Except for our articles of incorporation, the other two master documents have numerous amendments that have never been fully consolidated into one document, as the following slides will highlight. These unconsolidated amendments make reading the Declaration and bylaws confusing. Heritage Bay prides itself on good governance. To promote clarity and understanding, using, and enforcing our documents, good governance requires clear, updated, and usable governing documents. If you go to the Heritage Bay webpage under the Governance tab, and except for the Articles of Incorporation, you will see extensive and disjointed listing of amendments to our other two master governing documents. Now, I've been told not to use the color red for presentations. However, for these two slides, I thought it appropriate because if you have to read through all of these amendments to fully and clearly understand your governing documents, it can cause a headache. Our declaration, articles of incorporation, and bylaws are linked to one another in order of authority. They must be consistent and not conflict with each other, and so will be presented as a package for a membership vote of approval, as Chris Davies has indicated. So instead of that big black binder that I held up and showed you, each document will be fully consolidated and restated to look like these proposed working drafts of all three. This versus this. What is the history and purpose of the Master Documents Review Ad Hoc Committee? And what vote percentage from the membership is required to approve the proposed revised master documents? The committee was created by the Board of Directors in April 2018. The purpose, to recommend changes to the master documents after review by committee members and association council. Submit a recommendation to the Heritage Bay Board of Directors on March 14, 2019, to approve for a vote of the membership at your general membership annual meeting on April 25, 2019. Please keep in mind, the revisions proposed by the committee are not intended to make major policy changes to provisions in our master documents. For this reason, the committee is not proposing such revisions at this time, but we will keep member input for future considerations. Please also keep in mind the committee's goal is to first create a better working baseline set of master documents. To do so, again, we must get a 2/3 membership approval, which is a higher bar than simply a majority vote. So we need your vote from the Heritage Bay community. What to expect from the revised master documents? Allow you to better understand and more easily review your documents. Consolidate the prior amendments into one document. Reflect our current laws, federal, state, and local. Omit our outdated reference to the declarant and the developer Lennar. Clarify those provisions that are potentially confusing when you read them. Correct errors and omissions that occurred during the drafting process of the previous documents. And we want to improve and more accurately reflect the operations of our club since the developer turnover. The committee has developed a timeline which is posted online on the committee webpage. Here are some important dates which show you how the committee's work has progressed and which you will want to calendar for the future. On November 9th, the committee had created documents including redlined, showing the deletions, the edits out, and the blue text showing additions, and clean versions, and a document revision summary. of the proposed revisions, and we posted all of these online on our committee webpage for the members to review. On November 15th at the Board of Directors meeting, we presented these working drafts to the board, and Christopher Davies, Association Counsel, was there present to explain what the working drafts contained and what we were proposing to do with the amended and restatement documents. Today, January 28th, obviously is our first town hall. We appreciate everyone being present here, but for those who are not, you can go to our committee webpage and you will be able to view the town hall as well as this PowerPoint presentation. After this town hall, the committee is going to be working on a second revised drafting of all three documents and a second document revision summary. March 4th will be the second town hall, and that will also be the deadline to receive suggested revisions to the three documents. The committee has set a deadline of March 8 to complete all of the proposed revisions. On March 14th, those final proposed revisions of all three documents will be presented to the Board of Directors, and they will be asked to approve the committee's recommendation to submit these final drafts for a membership vote. And then on April 25th will be the vote at the general membership annual meeting. Those ballots will be sent to members 30 days before, and the voting results will be announced at the meeting. Heritage Bay Administration, in particular our Director of Administrative Services, Stephanie McIntosh, has collaborated with the committee to streamline electronic notices to members about the vote, which will take place in April. The voting will be done by paper ballots, which will be mailed to the membership. And the final drafts will be voted on, will be posted online in both the edited and clean versions. Thank you to all of those of you who have returned your written consents, because this helps the club save money on mailings and administrative costs. What can you view online during the revision process leading up to the membership vote in April 2019? And how has the committee been collecting and tracking member comments and input? Well, when you go to the committee webpage, you're going to see the working drafts of all three documents, declaration, articles, and bylaws, with blue and red edits, and also a clean copy. You will also see a document revision summary, which lists general and specific revisions, and there is also a dedicated web link for member comments and questions about revisions in the working drafts. This committee considers it to be a steward of these important documents. We are striving to make its work transparent and accessible to all its members by posting the following on its webpage, including these three items. In addition, web link comments are sent to all committee members, and we try to send a prompt email response to each comment. The committee is compiling all the web link member comments for committee review and consideration. You will also see a listing of general revisions, and this is what they are. They incorporate existing amendments, delete references to the developer, delete content only relevant before the turnover, clarify language that we've been developed with 1,250 living units. We have a CDD. Add definitions for several terms and documents that were not defined before. Deletes references to commercial property, which we no longer have. And then in many places deletes terms such as lot, dwelling unit, parcel, tract, and replacing it with the term living unit, which more accurately reflects what we have today. You will also see in the document revision summary a listing of more specific revisions proposed in the documents, so you can understand what is being specifically revised and why. With section numbers, you can go to each section and see each proposed revision. Today's town hall will be followed by a second town hall. There will also continue to be an opportunity for members to submit their questions and comments online through the committee webpage web link. This is a special dedicated web link, as I explained, so it is separate from the general comments web link on the home page of the Heritage Bay website. Just click on the home page, Governance, go to that tab, go to Committees, and go to the Master Documents Committee. The second town hall, again, will be held on February 28th from 2 to 4 p.m. Our committee is tasked with completing its work no later than March 8th. So the deadline for further suggested revisions is March 4th, and the committee must finalize those revisions by that deadline of March 8th. Remember, these are your documents. Think of this process as an internal club renovation. It's not something outwardly physical you can readily see. However, it directly impacts the manner in which your community is governed. So the membership is invited to give input, make comments and suggestions, and ask questions about our revision process and about the general and specific revisions. These are living documents, so we need not make all of the changes or revisions in one shot that we would eventually like to see. First, we need to have cleaner, clearer, and more workable documents as a base. The committee members and association council have spent many hours reviewing, meeting, discussing, and vetting revisions. Now we need your review. Again, our goal is to submit a package of proposed revised documents that will muster a 2/3 favorable vote. To be successful, we need your help to accomplish our immediate goal as the first step to best serve the interests of the membership. I'm concluding the PowerPoint presentation at this point. It will be posted online after this town hall, along with a video of the town hall presentation. We're going to now welcome questions and comments from the members who are present here today. If you are viewing this online, please submit your comments and questions about the current revisions through the web link on the committee webpage. The next committee meeting is on February 5th. The committee will compile member comments from this town hall and from the web link for review and discussion at the next committee meeting. We will use this information as well as other previous comments submitted by members before this town hall to vet and incorporate further revisions. We will then prepare a second set of working documents and a second document revision summary. All of those will be posted online for further member review prior to the second town hall on March 4th. So these are the 3 documents that we will be receiving member input about today. A thank you to everyone involved in this important master document review process. So at this time, I'd like to thank everyone for being here and open it up for member questions and comments. And if you could raise your hand, we'll have someone come to you with a microphone. We have a question here. And if you could please tell us what neighborhood community you're from. You don't have to give your name. Okay, so the question is, I believe you're asking about the documents posted online, if they will be in a PDF form so that you can do a search for certain terms.
And final.
And also for the final. Yes, and we can create some bookmarks as well, according to our association council. I should explain that our association council has been the keeper of the revisions as we've gone along. So there's just one control over what's been going into the documents and how they've been revised. So I understand that they will be able to create that to allow you to view the documents in that manner. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah, we can do that. I think it's a good comment. So for the next go-around, prior to the next town hall, we'll add an index and bookmarks so that if you want to search something that may be a little quicker than how it's currently set up, I'll be happy to do that for you.
So to rephrase your question, I think what you're asking is how do you view, or what document do you use to review what changes are summarized for the documents?
Yes.
That is the document revision summary. It's a separate document, and it is up on the screen here in the room. The document revision summary does 2 things. And it is a summary. It is not a substitute for reviewing what's in the actual documents, but it is a guide. So the first portion describes generally what the general revisions were made through all the documents. And then it describes in a second section more specific revisions, and it gives the exact provision in the document and a description of what the revision is. So if you go to the document revision summary and you look at the general revisions and you look at the specific revisions, you should be able to track what we have done very accurately. When you look at the actual documents themselves, let's say it's the declaration, and you may see some red printing with lines through it. What that means is that is language that was stricken. So in editing, when you line out something, it is being stricken as an edit, and we've put those in red. The wording that is in blue is language that has been added. So if you look at a page and there is red and blue, you can see what is being edited out and what is being added as proposed revisions. So if you go to the document revision summary, that will give you a roadmap. But again, it's a guide, so you need to go to the actual document and read it within context to make sure you are understanding. So the question is, what is the timeline to review the documents? So the timeline to or the time taken to review the document revision summary should be just a few minutes. If you wish to pick up the document itself and read through, then you need to spend some more time. And how much time you spend on it depends on what questions you have and how thoroughly you want to review it. But if you want to review it from end to end, you're going to need to set aside a little time. Okay? Some other questions and comments. Okay, to recap, you're asking about the bylaws, correct? Section 3.7, and that section is titled Voting Representatives. Are we on the same page?
Correct.
All right, and in our document revision summary, what it explains, it says that this change deletes a role of the voting representative which they have never done and would not have the information necessary to do. Would we be able to pull that up, Matt? That would be the bylaws. So we would go out of the document revision summary that we currently have up, and we would go into the actual bylaw, voting representatives. And then if you go down to subsection D, and that is the change that's being referenced. And the language there that says, keep the secretary of the club informed of changes in the ownership of parcels as they occur and the names and addresses of the new members. So this was in the current, or this is in our current documents as a responsibility of your voting representative for each of your neighborhood associations. During discussion in the committees, we realized that none of the voting representatives do this. They've never done it, and there's really no ability for them to know how to do this, and so it's really something that is unnecessary and just is not operable within our community. That is the reason why we struck that, or we suggested that that would be revised out. So, sir, your question is about the bylaws, section 4.11. Is that what you're asking? Okay, can you go, Matt, to section 4.11, 4.11? 4.11 of the bylaws, board meetings, notice to members. And I believe your question goes to the second and third line where it states, all meetings of the board shall be open to all members except, and then this language in blue is being added, members governed by the attorney-client privilege or discussing personnel matters, period. Is your question in regard to that sentence, sir?
Yes.
Okay. I will have Chris Davies, would you please address that, because I believe that that was language that was recommended by our association council.
So the concept in Florida law is that board meetings are open, except for a couple of exceptions that are expressly called out in section 411 here, which is entirely consistent with Chapter 720 of the Florida statutes. And those exceptions are discussing personnel matters and attorney-client privilege. I heard you ask the question, sir, well, what would attorney-client privilege be? An example might be a piece of litigation. Let's assume that the board is suing someone or a business entity that maybe did business in here, that something didn't work out quite as well as it should have, and we're engaged in litigation regarding that matter. That would be something that would allow the board to close that meeting off to the membership. It's an exception to the open board meeting concept, and allow us to have a frank discussion about the strategy of the case. Should we make a settlement offer? If so, what should the offer be? Things that we cannot discuss in an open forum, because we don't know if the person that we're suing, if his buddy is sitting in the front row. And we need to have the freedom to be able to discuss that candidly without damaging the strategy for the association and shooting ourselves in the foot. So we're going to talk about, well, okay, we'll offer the guy $1,000. We don't want him to find out about that, before the meeting's done. So it's necessary to have confidentiality and privacy when we're having attorney-client meetings of that type. Does that answer your question, sir?
Thank you, very clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And so to recap, hopefully correctly, you are looking in the context of a neighborhood association looking to enforce payment of neighborhood association assessments or fees, but relying upon this provision in the bylaws for the master documents. Is that correct? So I want to make sure I recap. So you're asking if the neighborhood association, in conjunction with the master association, could utilize this section to suspend the use rights of a member in the event of a non-payment of a neighborhood association assessment or fee.
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to ask Chris Davies to comment on that. I believe that this provisions and any of these provisions in the let me clarify. I believe that this provision would apply only to the authority of the club, the master association club, to use this provision. That this would not be a neighborhood association provision. But let me confer. Have Chris Davies. Yes. Yes.
Just to add something to that, as a general rule, and I'm not saying the master can't do this, and you've heard the discussion about this, and we'll have to look into it a little bit more detail. It's a good question. It's an interesting question. But really, when you have an owner who is delinquent in your neighborhood association, you have all the powers and all the rights to enforce all of the provisions in your governing documents for your neighborhood association, and under Florida law, whether it's a condominium association governed by Chapter 718 or a homeowners association governed by 720, under most circumstances, and Murphy is alive and well, so I know there's always an exception, but under most circumstances, a neighborhood association should be able to take care of their own delinquent owners without it having to come to the master. It's a little easier that way. It's a little cleaner that way. We're not saying we can't necessarily do that, because I think we have to look at that a little bit more, and I appreciate what Tom is saying about it. But as a general rule, you should have all the authority in your bylaws and in your declaration for your neighborhood association. And if for some reason you don't think you have that strength and that power, you might want to consider a neighborhood amendment that provides that to you. But I think you're going to find that you have everything you need in order to secure payment from a delinquent owner.
So to recap, ma'am, and thank you for those questions, you did refer to a previous PowerPoint that we made presentations on. I think that would have been to the board of directors. So if you have a question about any specific terms, those are defined in the declarations. And I would urge you to go there to look at those definitions in the declaration of several of those terms. Sometimes some of these terms we use colloquially to be interchangeable. So I understand that you're not asking about a specific term that's been defined or revised in the declaration, but more about how we have used it to describe what the committee is doing. So I would urge you that if you have a question about any of those terms, that you go to the declaration where those terms are defined. And if you still have a question about that, to send us a web link or contact us about that. And if for any reason the terms that we have used have been interchanged with something else, we'd be glad to clarify that for you. So the question is this the first time we're doing a vote and to amend or revise our documents to have a 2/3 vote? And the answer is no. We have had previous amendments. We've had many amendments, as you have seen, to our documents, and I am not aware of any that haven't passed. Actually, that's a good question.
Oh, they've all passed, 2/3.
And they have all passed with a 2/3 margin. You're asking about Section 711 of the bylaws, and that section is entitled Special Assessments, where it says the total of all special assessments payable to the members generally shall not exceed, the previous amount was $300 per parcel in any fiscal year unless approved in advance by a majority of the members who are eligible to vote and present, and that should be, and are present in person or by proxy at a duly called meeting of the members. As I indicated during the presentation, we do not intend, nor do we wish it to appear, that we're making any major policy changes in these documents. That comment has been made by another member about the change from 200 to 300, and the committee is in agreement that we're going to revise it back to 200 and allow that to be adjusted by the membership if they wish by a separate membership vote. So to recap your question, I don't mean to cut you off, but I have a brief answer to it, which I think may answer the rest of what your question might be. So we're talking about the declaration, is that correct?
Declaration.
And the declaration has a provision for the definition of family and family unit. Are you talking about the definition sections?
Yes, as compared with section 4.2, use of common areas, golf course.
Okay, may I address those? And so this is the sections having to do with the definitions of family and family unit, and section 4.2 having to do with, can you say that again?
Use of common areas.
Use of the common areas.
Right.
So we're going to pull those up, and then, so the sections we're talking about is section 1.18, which is the newly numbered section in the declaration and talks about family and the definition of family. And then family unit is also mentioned in section 4.2 of the declaration, use of the common areas. So my answer is brief. We are not recommending any major policy revisions to either of those sections at this time. And the reason is that the committee has determined, after many discussions and many readings of these provisions, that the better way to go would be to have a complete rewrite of these sections, assisted by our association counsel. We believe that they can be done better and clearer, but that we were able to operate with them at this time, but that to making any substantive or making any large policy changes to those sections might impact our ability to get a 2/3 vote, and we believe that that needs to be addressed if it is addressed at a later time. Okay, thank you, everyone. At this time, I'm going to make some closing remarks. I wish to thank everyone involved in this important document revision process. The next important dates are listed at the end of the agendas, which you have. Our second town hall will be March 4th from 2 to 4 p.m. And that is the same day for the deadline for our final revision requests. So after we post the second amended, or the second revisions of the documents and the document revision summary, Please go through that review, send us any other suggested revisions so that we'll be able to incorporate them after the town hall on March 4th. The committee then will make a recommendation to the Board of Directors for a membership vote on March 14th, so that will be a Board of Directors meeting. And then the vote will take place on April 25th for the final draft of amended and restated documents. Again, as we've discussed, you will be receiving your ballots, so you will be able to mail in your ballots, or if you're here, you may come in and vote in person, or you may be able to appoint a proxy to vote for you if you have any concerns about your mail coming in. We encourage all our members to stay engaged, visit our webpage and our posted meetings, review the second set of revisions and document revision summary, give further feedback online, and attend the last town hall. The committee will finalize the proposed revised documents no later than March 8th. And as I say, those will be submitted to the board on March 14th for approval for a membership vote. We hope to see you again for the town hall on March 4th. Finally, we ask for your support and your vote of approval on April 25th. And I'd like to thank all the committee members, management staff, and association council for being here today. Thank you.